Trump is on the offensive. He just announced that he will attend the National Association of Black Journalists Conference on Wednesday in Chicago and make himself available with a Q&A with political journalists, which will be live streamed. This is a new tact for the former president, who in previous campaigns has labeled the press, quote, the enemies of the people. He is also going after Kamala Harris hard, calling her failed, weak, dangerously liberal. Let's watch.
This is America's border czar, and she's failed us. Under Harris, over 10 million illegally here. 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl. Brutal migrant crimes. And ISIS now here.
Do you have any plans to visit the border? You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
Kamala Harris, failed, weak, dangerously liberal.
Trump spent $12 million to air that ad in the key swing states of Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, Georgia, and Michigan. It's the first major ad buy since Harris entered the race.
This ad campaign comes as Trump's camp attempts to stop the momentum building around Harris. Her improved polls, paired with record-setting fundraising, might be worrisome for Team Trump. They've refrained from pouring money into big ad buys over the last few months until now. And the airwaves will not be dominated by Trump. According to Politico, the Harris campaign is planning to spend big on a media buy, too. The $50 million commitment that Super PAC Future Forward pledged should come in handy for Team Harris, Politico reports. An announcement from Harris's camp about its attack ads could come as early as this morning. So I do think it's weird that they always bring up fentanyl when they talk about the southern border, given that the DEA reports most of it's coming from China. This belief that it comes from Mexico is just, a bit dishonest, and putting it in a campaign ad. As someone who has family members who were addicted to heroin for a long time, and it got to the point that they were using fentanyl. A lot of people believe fentanyl is this drug that you only use by accident. It's something that's laced with it. There are people who intentionally take fentanyl that are that addicted to opioids. She's clean now, and she works on getting other people clean, which is a great story. But nevertheless, I do take issue with them always talking about the southern border and saying fentanyl is coming from Mexico and the Mexicans are bringing it in. It's a bad narrative.
Yeah, it's a real China problem. What do you make of Trump? He's going to talk to the Society of Black Journalists. We went over some polling the other day showing that black men specifically not quite sold on Kamala Harris yet. Trump really seems to be making overtures to picking up votes in this demographic. Yeah,
I really hope that there are tough questions asked. Questions with policy commitments associated with them. Questions about the larger messaging of the right lately around race and whether or not Trump agrees with that. Because I think a lot of the messaging that alienates black voters is not always things that comes directly from the candidate, but rather people close to the candidate and people who like the candidate. So I really hope there's hard questions asked and Trump is required to give a precise answer. I don't think there's any reason for journalists to debate with Trump. We see back and forths happen all the time in these press briefings, which are usually good. But I think Trump would be making a huge misstep if he were to start getting in debates with people during this Q&A. I think we need clear answers and clear policy commitments.
Yeah, for as much as Trump is perceived to have this combative relationship with the press, calling them enemies of the people, et cetera, Trump is more available to the media than Joe Biden has been. Trump enjoys talking to, he'll call them out if he doesn't like what they had to say. If he thinks they're being unfair or biased to him, he'll argue with them, he'll tweet about them, but he engages the media in a way our sitting president has increasingly failed to do over the last several years, as he's just shrunk from public life, and his people, his supporters, his people in office have tried to keep the press at bay to avoid scrutiny of his obvious mental decline and physical decline.
Yeah, we talked yesterday about Kamala Harris's white women for Harris, or white women answer the call, the black men's call, win with black men, win with black women. Then there's this white men for Kamala Harris. I saw Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the actor. I think he's an actor.
He's an actor.
He said good things. But what do you make now that Trump is really targeting this faction of just black journalists?
Yeah, I mean, I think he hopes that these people, are going to say nice or kinder things about Trump to this demographic. The Republican Party has done very badly with black voters for many, many, many election cycles, like pitifully bad, like 8% of the vote bad. So they really only have room for improvement. And, it's, excuse me, it's anecdotal, of course, but like I do, when I interact with black guys, I perceive sometimes it's been brought up to me. This has literally happened to me on the street. People saying that they don't like Kamala Harris in this specific demographic.
So black men are stopping on the street and they're like, Robby, I need you to know, I really don't like Kamala Harris.
I'm not joking. This has happened to me before. I mean, they know I'm a political commentator, so it's just not out of nowhere. They know that I'm someone who's interested in what people have to say. They want to tell me they don't like Kamala Harris. This has happened to me.
That's very interesting. Well, I think it's fascinating that
it's happening enough times where I can't just like write it off as a one-off.
You could create Black Dudes Against Harris and have a big Zoom call.
I guess.
But I do think it's rich that so many members of the right are coming and saying, oh, it's so ridiculous, this DEI, this targeted stuff for Harris, all of these affinity groups. But then you have Trump doing the same thing on the campaign trail, and that just speaks to politics.
What? How is he doing the same thing?
Well, he's speaking to a group that's just black journalists.
Well, I mean, that's
discriminatory, as the right's been saying, to only allow that group.
Well, he didn't organize a black journalists only thing. They're already having the thing, and he's going to talk to them. And it's more of a professional association because it's based in their employment.
But the voters for Harris organize themselves as well.
I mean, that's based just on their skin color. Look, I would not make a skin color based association if I was in charge of such things. But I think it's very different to have Trump court those people or talk to them than say that like the Trump campaign is not specifically organizing a black people thing.
Well, the Harris campaign didn't organize those either. They were the groups organized them themselves.
I think in coordination with the campaign.
They were not. No, that would break FEC regulations.
Okay.
It was just the groups organizing themselves. So I think
it was just totally spontaneous with all those celebrities just happened to be like, oh, I'm available for a Zoom call.
Yeah, absolutely. PACs are very powerful
really
in our political environment, Robby.
Yeah.
They can put a lot of money behind candidates and they can organize it independently of the candidate. If Trump's taking credit for what all of the PACs are doing, and that's how we're running this election, he's going to have a lot more to answer for than he already does, especially with the Project 2025 stuff. So, there's, of course, behind-the-scenes stuff that happens every election cycle where you have PACs and nonprofits, C4s, C3s, that are organizing in ways that cross the line somehow. And the FEC would have their hands full if they investigated it every time it came close. Of course, it happens. But I do find it fascinating that, Trump's hanging out with only black journalists. What if a white journalist shows up and wants to go in, Robby? Will they be discriminated against?
I hope not. I'm sure I'm sure Trump would meet with a white journalist too. Now, if they had a professional organization that was white journalists only, I don't think people would take too kindly to that, so they probably shouldn't start such a thing. More rising right after this.